Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, hands off Africa. The Pope denounces the poison of greed, driving conflicts and exploitation of the continent. The message goes down well, the tens of thousands cheering his arrival in DR Congo. Also, Liberia's president hopes to bag another win after a stellar international footballing career before his pivot to politics. George Weah rejects criticism that he's out of touch and sets his sight on a second mandate in October's election. And a deadline for Nigerians to deposit old currency is extended, but the swap to new denominations and push for more cashless transactions causes frustration and long queues at banks. But first, the Pope has unequivocally denounced the ongoing exploitation of Africa, saying that the plunder of DR Congo's resources has disenfranchised its own people. The pontiff arrived in Kinshasa on Tuesday for his fifth trip to Africa. Huge crowds cheered as the Pope mobile made its way through to the presidential palace. Seema Gupta was there.
Such an overwhelming response, with tens of thousands of people lining the street to welcome Pope Francis to Kinshasa. The Democratic Republic of Congo has the largest Catholic population in Africa, and the enthusiasm for this first papal visit in 37 years shows.
I can't find the words to express how happy I am, this emotion, the depth of my feeling. It is sheer joy for our Holy Father in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What a blessing. We are truly blessed.
When I saw the Pope, I saw the face of peace. And I felt like crying, not tears of suffering, but of the joy of seeing our Father.
The pontiff met the Congolese president, who noted the long conflict and renewed violence in the east of the country.
This misfortune, which has lasted for nearly 30 years, is today part of our territory, prey to this violence, and makes this area a zone where, in addition to armed groups, foreign powers greedy for minerals contained in our subsoil commit cruel atrocities.
It was a theme that the Pope himself picked up on, condemning the economic colonialism in Africa.
Hands off the Democratic Republic of Congo. Hands off Africa. Stop choking Africa. Africa is not a mine to be stripped or a terrain to be plundered. May Africa be the protagonist of its own destiny.
For the Pope, this trip is very much about shining a light on a part of the world that is often forgotten, celebrating its strengths as well, while also bringing a message of peace.
Seema Gupta there for us in DR Congo. Now, an upswing in violence in eastern DR Congo was condemned by Southern African leaders meeting in Namibia's capital on Tuesday. The SADC bloc also raised concerns about conflict and brewing tensions elsewhere in the region, as Nadine Theron tells us.
With several conflict hotspots across the region, security was at the heart of talks at the Southern African Development Committee Summit on Tuesday. The presidents of Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho and Eswatini's prime ministers, and the defense minister of Mozambique gathered in Windhoek. And first up on the agenda was SAMIM, the bloc's mission in Mozambique to help battle an Islamic insurgency that's been taking root there since 2021. SADC is hoping to get leaders to boost support for the operation, but confirmed that peacekeepers are still investigating a video of what appears to be its soldiers burning bodies. The bloc also condemned the upsurge of armed conflict in eastern DRC and the support provided to M23 rebels by foreign forces. And an urgent call for a peaceful national dialogue was made to the absent King of Eswatini. Namibian President Hage Geingob also urged that there be calm in Africa's last monarchy and expressed concern about escalating tensions. This follows the assassination of Thulani Maseko, a human rights activist and the leader of Eswatini's democratic movement last weekend. SADC said there was a need for a swift and transparent investigation into the activist's killing.
Nadine Theron there for us. Now, former football star George Weah will be running for a second term in Liberia's election later this year. His critics accuse him of not being sufficiently invested in the country's economic troubles, but he's defended his mandate. Kemi Nedlek has more.
A child growing up in a slum, an international football star, and a head of state. Liberian President George Weah announced on Monday he would be seeking a second term in his country's presidential elections in October.
The state of our nation is vibrant. The state of our nation is useful. The state of our nation is peaceful and secure. We intend to keep it this way.
In 2017, his victory at the polls had raised hopes that he could be the one to reverse the country's fortunes after years of civil wars and a deadly Ebola outbreak. Weah had promised to curb corruption, but Transparency International still ranks Liberia as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Several Liberian officials have been sanctioned by the US over graft allegations in recent years. Liberia is also one of the least developed countries, and during Weah's first year in office, inflation soared at almost 30%. The economy took a fresh battering with the war in Ukraine this past year, with annual inflation expected to be around 10% amid shortages of basic necessities such as rice.
This government has deliberately refused to listen to the cry of the citizen. So for this reason, we have gathered here today peacefully as a citizen of this nation that is going through torment from the hands of George Weah, the president of this nation.
Despite his humble beginnings, his critics accuse Weah of being blind to how hard life is for many Liberians. Over half of the country lives below the national poverty line.
Well, in Nigeria, Tuesday marked the original deadline for the depositing of old currency. There's a lot of frustration about the speed with which the changeover is happening. Nigerians now have until February the 10th before outdated notes are taken out of circulation. But the swap has created a shortage of cash ahead of next month's elections, as Sam Olakoya tells us.
The banks and automated teller machines are witnessing unprecedented chaos as Nigerians struggle to get the country's newly introduced currency. With less than 2 weeks before the old currency ceases to be legal tender, many Nigerians are unable to swap them with the new money. The central bank appeared to have printed limited quantities of the new currency, which cannot serve in this country of more than 200 million people. People are permitted to collect limited amount of the new currency from banks and the ATMs. Even then, it is very difficult to get the money because the banks and the ATMs do not have enough cash. Many Nigerians are still stuck with the old currency. Unfortunately, they cannot spend them. The old currency is still legal tender, but people are rejecting it for fear of losing the money when it ceases to be legal tender in the coming days. In a country where many people rely on physical cash for their daily financial transactions, the scarcity of the new currency has caused considerable hardship for Nigerians. Many cannot carry out basic financial transactions like buying food or paying for essential services like transportation and hospital bills. There are allegations that some people in the banking system are hoarding the new currency and dispensing it to those who are willing to forgo a portion of the money. Authorities have in the meantime announced the arrest of some people accused of dispensing the new currency for profit.
Sam Olakoya there for us. Now, South Africa's ruling ANC party wants to use disaster management legislation used to tackle the pandemic to help manage the energy crisis. Daily blackouts continue to hobble the nation and undercut key sectors like agriculture. Some farmers are struggling to irrigate their fields after years of water shortages.
A countryside idyll and a harvest in danger. These orchards need a steady supply of electricity to stay irrigated, an impossible ask in South Africa, which is in the grip of an ongoing energy crisis, forcing the state-owned utility company Eskom to schedule blackouts, known as load shedding.
In this time of the year, it's a peak period of irrigation. You need 2 or 3 cycles. The tree have a certain need for water. And you need a certain amount of hours in a week from Monday to Sunday. And with phase 3 to 6 load shedding, it's impossible.
Originally destined for the more lucrative export market, too little water lowers the size and quality of the fruit. if just 10% of this harvest ends up fit only to be sold domestically, the farm could lose over €400,000. This packaging warehouse handling fresh food can't operate only when it has power from the grid, and so is forced to run expensive diesel generators.
All the fruit is scheduled to be packed in certain times, so we need to do it even though it costs us a lot more than running with ESCOM power. And it's basically not profitable for us, but still we have to give that service to the farmers.
Farmers say that if load shedding continues, their businesses will no longer be viable. But the South African government warns it is set to continue for at least the next year.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.